Hello, this is Mark Sabatella from Outside Shore Music. In this video, I'm going to talk about Alberti Bass, which is a really common accompaniment pattern that you often see, especially in early classical piano music. It was named after a composer, Alberti, who is frankly known primarily because of this pattern, but he didn't invent the pattern and he was not the only one to use it. Tons of composers did, and not just in piano music and not just in early classical period. You can see it as a string accompaniment pattern. You can really see it in a lot of different places, but it's very much associated with classical piano accompaniment. So here is a really well-known example from Mozart, the C major piano sonata, which starts like this. So that's the beginning of that sonata, and it's this pattern that I'm talking about. And really, it's just arpeggiating the chord, but it's a fairly specific type of thing in which we play the lowest note first, then the highest note, and then the middle note, and then the top note. And there's all sorts of variations on this that are possible, but this basic pattern where you're taking a three-note voicing. Basically, this is a C major triad in root position, and it's played bottom, top, middle, top. That's really all there is to the pattern, but using it effectively, there are a few things we want to keep in mind. So, for instance, that first measure here, the pattern is basically that C major triad in root position. In the next measure, you can see the first two beats is these three notes. Well, that's not a triad, right? It's 3/4 of a dominant seventh chord. It's 3/4 of a G7 chord. The B is in the melody. So when you're using this pattern on a seventh chord, you can omit whichever note is prominent in the melody so that you only have to play three notes in your pattern. And notice that it's not played in root position. It is played in an inversion so that the voice leading is nice and smooth between the C chord, the G7 chord, and then back to the C chord. In fact, I can flip over to where I've written all this out so you can see just what these voicings look like. Yeah, there's a little trill or something there. But you can see how smooth the voice leading is here. He's taking advantage of common tones everywhere. The G on top, the G on top, the G on top. Here it's the C on the bottom. That's the common tone. And then back to the C chord again. The C on the bottom is the common tone. And then for the G chord here, the G on top is the common tone. And then the G on top is the common tone again as we come back to the C chord. So there's always a common tone kept where possible, and in general the voice leading is nice and smooth. Well, this is great if you're going to play the chords just as block chords like this, but it's really just as great when doing this arpeggiation pattern, because it means your hand can kind of stay in one place while you arpeggiate, and you get the effect of the smooth voice leading that makes less motion in the hand, and also the ear can sort out those common tones. The ear can make that association. So keeping good voice leading between the chords is definitely part of this, and so it does mean you're going to be using inversions often. Now, I call it Alberti Bass, not just me, that is what everyone calls this, but you may notice this is not actually in the bass range of the piano. It would be possible to play this pattern down here. It gets a little heavy down here and disassociated from the melody when you do that. So it's actually pretty common to see that pattern used basically in the alto range as we see in this example, or often kind of in a tenor kind of range where it's just below middle C. You do see it down low as well, but probably more, I don't know about more often, but at least as often you see it more in a tenor or alto range so that you get the effect of that arpeggiation And the nice fit of the hand, because these notes, right, this is a close position voicing. You don't want to have to do this. I mean, you could. This is a fine pattern too, but it's much more of a spread to do that. This just sits under the hand really nicely if you keep the voicing in close position like that. So this is Alberti Bass, and here it is in Mozart, but you find it all over the place in lots of different types of music. Just a really common and popular accompaniment pattern, especially for piano.